I'm Tim Ventura, and we're joined today by Dr. Jack Sarfatti, a theoretical physicist specializing in advanced propulsion research. Jack has a Ph.D. in physics from the University of California, taught physics at San Diego State University, worked with David Bohm at the University of London's Birkbeck College, and with Abdus Salam at the International Center for Theoretical Physics in Trieste, Italy. Jack was the basis of the memorable time-traveling Dr. Emmett Brown in the Back to the Future trilogy, and the author of Super Cosmos, Destiny Matrix, Space, Time, and Beyond 2, and the co-author with Fred Allen Wolf and Bob Tobin of Space, Time, and Beyond Toward an Explanation of the Unexplainable. So today we are talking about the breaking news story on the UAP front. Without any further ado, Jack, welcome, sir. Let me do a screen share and put this thing up for the audience.
Yes.
So basically, this is the story. Intelligence officials say U.S. has retrieved craft of non-human origin. This just came out. And so we have a gentleman named David Charles Grusch. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Decorated former combat officer in Afghanistan. He's a veteran of the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance Office. Now, I think more importantly, he served as the office's representative to the UAP task force, and his credentials appear to be impeccable. For instance, he helped draft some of the wording that went into the Congressional Act, from what I've read. He also apparently pursued his own investigation into UAP that led him to a lot of whistleblower confirmations. And so what he is saying is, again, it's right here in the headline, we've retrieved craft of non-human origin. There are other experts who are cited here. The non-human intelligence phenomena is real. We are not alone. This is from another intelligence officer. What it doesn't have is details on the technology or anything like that. That's all classified. But what it does have is, again, this very clear statement that the U.S. has both crash wreckage as well as intact vehicles. One they described as abandoned that was recovered. I think the important thing for the audience to know is this story, actually the servers have been down. I had to try and load that story about 5 times to actually get it to load. So this is going to be making, I mean, it's already making global headlines. And this could be the disclosure event, I guess, that UFO advocates have been talking about for decades. So Jack, what are your thoughts on that?
I cannot identify my source. I have a very reliable military source who I trust is not lying to me, who actually had access to an intact craft for a long, I won't say how long, but for a very long time, because if I give the precise number of years, then people would know who he is, and I'm not going to do that. But this person is himself a scientist, and he was not able to figure out how the damn thing worked. Okay, because this is way before way before my breakthrough. Okay, and what I'm saying is this: I hope I'm wrong. I hope to be proved wrong. But the main reason for the secrecy is that the guys who have access, they don't understand the physics. They don't understand it. Okay, they don't understand what I claim I understand. This explains some of the some of the secrecy, because when a military and when a bureaucrat, a government intelligence officer doesn't understand something that is a threat, of course they get very spooked by it, and that's understandable.
I think in terms of the compartmentalization, and you raised a really important point, right? That the compartmentalization of this restricts it to the point where even if you have subject matter experts on it, and of course, subject matter experts never know everything, right? They typically know one subject really well. Even if you have a great team of people, if they hit roadblocks, they're stuck. They can't go outside of it. That's it for them.
Exactly. And by the way, you saw that in the NASA meeting, that they just had. I mean, those people are all very competent in their field, but they don't have a clue. It was clear they don't have a clue what the hell's going on because they don't understand Einstein's general relativity. And even some people, professionals, very good mathematical people who work in general relativity, they're able to do computations within the mathematical structure, but they don't really understand the physics behind it very, very deeply. See, you can do good work without really understanding the foundations of the subject. And I'm not the only one saying this. This is sort of generally known. I mean, a lot of physicists have remarked how, in fact, it's even in David Kaiser's book, How the Hippies Saved Physics, about the attitude of just shut up and calculate. Don't try to think about foundational, what it all really means. And in this case, that has hampered, actually, in a way, I'm glad that I'm the only guy who understands it. I mean, a few others that I work with, of course. In a way, I'm glad that they didn't get it because because I do have it, and that has some value. But of course, I hope to be proved wrong. I hope they understand it. But all my information from my inside military sources that they don't understand it, and that's why they're keeping it secret, because they cannot control what they don't understand. So what I'm saying now to everybody, to the world, is that the basic physics of how these machines work is very elementary and obvious, qualitatively. It's basic physics. Any intelligent civilization anywhere in the universe, it's a big universe, will discover this. As soon as they reach a certain point in technological evolution, they're going to discover this because it's not difficult. This is the kind of thing that they will be teaching. Everything I've been proposing, they'll be teaching at the Space Force Academy to cadets, who are like 18, 19 years old. It's not that hard. It's just you have to have the right idea. You have to have an open mind to sort of keep your mind open a little bit. So that's the problem. The physics is elementary. Now, what's not elementary is how you translate that theoretical physics understanding into the actual operational hardware technology. That involves the metamaterials and the condensed, all that stuff. And again, I like to make the analogy with the situation at the beginning of World War II, when Lisa Meitner showed nuclear fission was possible. Every physicist, knew that this means we can make an atomic or a nuclear fission bomb. The question is how do you translate that understanding? And that was the Manhattan Project that cost billions of dollars. 1,000 physicists, and fortunately, they did it like in 3 years, maybe a little less than 4 years, which was a remarkable achievement. Well, the same thing's happening now. The point is, a lot of money, millions of dollars of black budget money, has been wasted on defense contractors making money off this UFO thing, but they haven't solved the problem. I claim Jack Sarfatti, as the CIA asked me 50 years ago, mission accomplished. I've solved the basic problem. Okay.
Well, yeah. And one of the things that I like about the physics model that you're using to describe it, I mean, again, number one, rooted in general relativity, right? You're not making any new rules. You're not changing anything. The other part is it explains a lot of the UAP observations. One of the videos that I thought was very interesting was the Aguadilla UAP video, which appears to show gravitational lensing, which seems like it would be an offshoot of, not only the propulsion mechanism, but also the field. You've described it as kind of a force shield, right, to prevent ablation as it moves through the air and mediums.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, but that's a separate issue, which is more speculative. There is some evidence that you can manipulate the warp bubble in such a way that it will act as a kind of an anti-gravity barrier. So if you try to shoot a missile, the missile can't get through. And there's some from several independent military sources. There's anecdotal evidence that they've actually tried to shoot these things down, and the missiles did bounce, couldn't get it. So, and that's something that I want to separate that particular application of metric engineering physics to the propulsion. That's a separate, the force barrier is a separate. It's separate, although it's connected. It's separate from the propulsion aspect. Okay,
Well,
it's
and so from a propulsion aspect, I think the biggest part, I think probably the biggest stumbling block for the average person is getting to this idea that you're not pushing something out the back like a rocket.
yeah,
These are actually changing the metric of time space, and you're
yeah,
falling into it, right? And
yeah,
so therefore
yeah,
you're not going to have these G forces inside. You won't have a
exactly.
lot of the, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the gap. Mind the gap. That is a gap that most people cannot even now cross. And I mean also rocket engineers, especially, even guys like Elon Musk. I don't think if Elon Musk understood what I'm trying to explain to him, he would stop all this investment in the rockets. He'd start putting his money into this because it's so
Yeah,
much better.
I was thinking about that the other day. I read an article that was talking about escape velocity, and
It's
the
all nonsense.
author didn't, yeah, they didn't understand that that only applies to traditional propulsion mechanisms.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
such
Doesn't
thing as
apply to
escape velocity when you're working with these kind of
no,
technologies. It
no,
just
of
doesn't matter.
course, of course. And the point is, it's not just theoretical. It's a military threat because what happened. The fact of the matter is, and this is also what scares the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs. It's, we do not have air superiority anymore. The United States military, the United States Air Force, and the U.S. Naval Air Commands, they don't have air superiority, air supremacy. These Tic Tacs they can go as close as they want to the USS Nimitz and the Roosevelt carrier groups, and if they wanted to get hostile, they could destroy them. And we can't do a goddamn thing to stop it right now.
Well, last month, so radar footage was just released
Yeah,
from the USS Omaha that showed a 2019 swarm that appeared to be very similar. I mean, same general area as the Nimitz encounters. So,
yeah.
yeah, what you're saying there is absolutely correct. Now, I guess the caveat to that would be in terms of intent. It may be that these things have been here for a very long time, and so they may not have intent, but by the same token, as you mentioned, our near peer adversaries are trying to reverse engineer them as
Well,
well, right?
Putin's physicists have asked Jack Sarfatti to come to Moscow in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. They want me to fly to Moscow. Of course, I'm not going to fly to Moscow. So, yes, I do think there is a race going on. At the moment, I don't think the Russians have this technology because if Putin had it, he would have used it in Ukraine, right? With this technology, I mean, he could totally neutralize anything that the Ukrainians could throw at him. So they don't have it yet, but they may be working on it. And obviously,
Yeah.
I don't think the Chinese have it, and certainly the North Koreans. If Kim had it, he'd be boasting about it, right? So nobody has it yet, but there is a race, and I think here Jack Sarfatti is the goose with the golden egg. Okay, and until you listen to what Jack Sarfatti is telling you, you're gonna fail. You're simply gonna fail. And by the way, it's not only Jack Sarfatti; it's now Jose Rodell. There are several other physicists. By the way, James Angleton the third, that's a famous name, James Angleton, has tweeted the other day to his friend Senator Marco Rubio. This is a guy in Miami who's politically connected and part of the intelligence community, saying, "Listen to Jack Sarfatti, why don't you, Marco?" Who he knows personally. Listen to what Jack Sarfatti's trying to tell you, and also John Ramirez, a top CIA retired official, has said the same thing in public now on video. It's on YouTube. It's all there. So we have at least two, and then there's another CIA guy named Ronald Pandolfi, who's a PhD from UCLA, who also says that Jack Sarfatti knows what he's talking about. And so we have this factional struggle between different parts of the U.S. intelligence community, and it's about time now that everybody now come together. What is that thing that from the LA Rise? Why can't we all get along?
Well,
right.
I think, I think that this breaking news story, I think that this
Yeah.
may finally start to unite people, Now it'll be
Well, I
really
hope so.
interesting in the next few weeks, I think we'll see a lot of movement on this.
Okay,
And
let me
so,
say something very specific. Let me say also about the technology, about the retrieved craft. Here's what I can tell you, and I want to emphasize this. All of you watching this, go get Philip J. Corso's book, The Day After Roswell. Everything Corso says in that book about the saucer he saw, which was like 30 feet in diameter, had three little seats in there with, with the handprint. All that is literally true according to my direct military source who was in charge of trying to figure out how the damn things work for a long time. Okay, couldn't figure it out. He told me this, and I said, "Oh, well, that's just like Phil Corso's book." He had never heard of Phil Corso. He had never read the book, and everything he told me was exactly what's in Phil Corso's book. So that's, as a like a detective, cop investigating,
okay,
that's
well,
independent. And
yeah, so
one other thing. Also, Rick Doty has also said the same details. Now, whether Rick Doty is getting it from Phil Corso, I don't know, but I have an independent verification of what's in Phil Corso's book. So that is what they have. I even kind of know where this device, what military base in the United States it's at, which I'm not going to say. I have a pretty good, from several different sources, all converging on this one place where it is. And so, yes, everything that's in this new article has to be taken as, I would say, pretty close to 100% accurate. And it's in total agreement with my inside information as well. And the fact that, again, I keep emphasizing the fact that Jack Sarfatti has been invited to Moscow in early July to debrief them on all this stuff. I mean, how could this not, affect what's happening at Langley, what's happening in the Joint Chiefs, what's happening in the Senate Intelligence Committee? What's wrong with these people? What's going on here?
yeah, well, I think that there is so much movement so rapidly with this story. I mean, again, just last month we had the radar data released. The Mosul sphere was released last month, or it was highlighted last month at the Arab briefing, right? And so
Yeah.
those were two big new pieces of
Yeah,
data.
but you know what? I still have, there's still a problem. There's like inertia in the bureaucratic mind
Yeah.
because what I saw at that NASA thing, they're nice people, but they're totally clueless. They haven't a clue what's going on. And also, the Avi Loeb Galileo project, I think it's a good thing. I'm glad Avi's doing what he's doing. Let them measure. But Avi himself, is not tuned into the warp drive thing. He and Kirkpatrick, they're still thinking about propulsion and all this old technology.
Jack, I think one of the challenges is that everyone has been operating on different bits and pieces of information, and a lot of it has been left up to like what people feel comfortable with individually, right? And so
Yeah,
I think one of the things that may change now is as these revelations start to get out there, it may help align people. I mean, for instance, you mentioned Corso. I have met a lot of
yeah,
people that I hold in high regard who also tend to subscribe to that. Now, for the audience sake, I should mention Corso had indicated that I believe the transistor as well as fiber optic cable technology, things like
yeah,
that, actually emerged from UAP wreckage
yeah,
from the 40s, 60s, something like that, and
yeah.
and
Well, 47,
they
starting 47.
yeah, so this goes back a long ways, but one of the challenges is, again, I mean, like, do these craft have occupants? What do the occupants look like? Are they machines? I mean, there are so many other questions
Okay,
that have
yeah,
been
let me say what
unanswered.
I have. Okay, the documents are what Corso describes as small because the seats are small. They're like 3 feet tall, all that stuff. Now, sometimes you hear they have 6 fingers. My source says 4 fingers. He's And he's actually sat in the seats. He's been inside, all that stuff. And yeah, they're definitely androids. They are the technology. Okay, remember, I'm working on two problems. I'm working on conscious artificial intelligence. There's now been a review paper by Paavo Pilkin, who's a very respected cognitive scientist, professor in Helsinki, Finland, and also Sweden as joint. And he's written a review article, came out in December of 2022, last year. And in that, he has a whole section describing Jack Sarfatti's explanation of consciousness in terms of physics. So, it's like, it's got, he's a solid guy. I mean, he gets FETSA found, he gets grants and all that stuff. And he described very, very nice. Okay, that understanding translates into technology. Okay, using nanotech, using what are called quantum dot artificial neural nets. We can now, what's coming? Okay, Elon Musk, if you're listening, if you're watching this, something maybe you are. The Tesla, imagine a Tesla that's fully conscious. iPhone, Tim Cook, where are you, Tim? Wake up. But imagine enhancing Siri with this consciousness. Yeah. And that's what these Android, that's what the Greys are. That's what the occupants in those, they're just little robots, androids, but they have, they have some consciousness because they're using, the physics that I'm developing is that's their physics. Both the consciousness part and the propulsion part. I'm giving you their technology, their physics, and from that we have to develop the technology. So that's what I'm saying, and I challenge anybody, any skeptic, any debunker, you come on TV with me, deal with me directly, and let's see what happens. Okay, so it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I'm willing to duel any of them.
Well, Jack, on that note, why don't we close things down for today?
Right.
And let me thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to put links to as much as I possibly can in this show.
All right. Okay.